because people have the capacity to act so poorly at times. It's for that very reason that we must all the more pursue and advocate equality and democracy. It's because the evil doing is so preponderantly the product of those who have power and wealth. Not all evil doing, but most of it is, that we need restraints upon them, and we need to eliminate them as a class power. Not as people, but eliminate them as a class power. You know, the Founding Fathers were very concerned about the abuse of power, but their concern, the delegates who met in Philadelphia in 1787 to write the Constitution, their concern was with the power of the people, the masses. And they said it was a dangerous thing, and they had a name for it. They had the same name for it that Plato and Socrates had. They called it democracy, and they called it leveling. And they said that was the danger, that was the abuse. And yet this is the source of our power and legitimacy. So how do we set up a republican form of government without the excesses of leveling and democracy coming in? And that was what they consciously looked and worked for. They talked about it. If you say they did it today, you'll call it conspiracy theorists. But if you read what they said, that's what they said. And they were preoccupied by it. And James Madison, in his great essay, The Federalist Paper number 10, says exactly that. And he goes on and he says something else. That the people need to be checked. The people have to be watched. The people have to be distrusted. He didn't call them people, he called them the majority faction. Men of substance and property, however, did not need such checks. Men of substance, men of the better classes, needed no such check because they had an investment in the commonwealth, and they would therefore not jeopardize that commonwealth. Oh, yes, they would, James Madison, and they do it for the sake of their investments. And that's what the Founding Fathers didn't know. The Founding Fathers and the conservatives, the plutocrats and aristocrats, the reactionaries and the monarchists, the servants of class power and class science, the servants of concentrated wealth, they are the naive ones, a very self-serving naivete. They're really not as stupid as they pretend to be, nor as stupid as they expect us to be. We cannot afford their theories, no more than we can afford their practice. So never worry about how the nation needs stable institutions. This nation needs changing institutions and creative institutions. That's what it needs. Never worry about how our country needs a successful presidency. All through Iran-Contra, we now find out they even covered up. They didn't want to bring Reagan down when they could have, because it wouldn't be good for the nation. We needed a successful president. A successful in what? Eliminating the progressive income tax, in cutting women's infant children programs, in cutting human services to the people most in need, in pursuing a murderous war in El Salvador and Nicaragua. Successful? That's what a successful president. We don't need to worry about that. We need to worry about how the nation needs an honest, democratic president. And never worry about how we need strong leadership and a strong military and strong defenses. We desperately need a clean environment and decent transportation and affordable housing and a whole other list of things. The nation needs the will of its people. It needs the interests of its people. It needs the labor and concerns of its people. The nation needs sanity and a vigorous move away from the extremism and the insanity and the deceit and the conspiratorial hypocrisy that now rules. The nation needs democracy, and we don't have it, not enough of it, and we aim to get it. That's our human nature, or that's in the nature of our humanity, a yearning for decency, for peace, and social justice. Thank you.
We are going to have
here, but we should have a question period. And so why don't we, it's kind of late, so we won't go too long. Yes, sir.
Can you recommend a couple of good media sources? I'm quite familiar with KPFK and Pacifica, but perhaps there are others that I don't know about that carry some hard-edged news related to the Christic Institute case and similar kinds of cases.
He wants some reliable sources that carry some hard-edged news relating to the Christic Institute case and others. Well, the Christic Institute itself has a publication. You know about that. And you can get on their mailing list and they'll send it. The Christic Institute case has been covered very well, thoroughly, in the Communist Party newspaper, People's Daily World. It's been also covered in The Guardian, which is the New York independent radical publication. It's been covered in a few other things like The Nation's run. The Nation actually ran a very unfavorable and stupid article, and then an unfavorable and stupid column by my friend Alexander Coburn. But no, he's good. Then sometimes people go off the deep end. But as far as media sources, alternative media, those would be. There are also sources that police. That challenge the ongoing stuff that we get. There's an organization called Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting out of New York, which publishes a thing called Extra. It comes out once a month, and they will show you how the major media distort whatever is the main story, the invasion of Panama or SNLs or this, that, and the other thing, and they'll have stuff in there. The Institute for Media Analysis has a publication called Lies in Our Times, and Times is kind of in Germanic print, looks like New York Times or LA Times, and they do the same thing, and they come out of New York also. So those are publications. You have to look at those alternative publications. Otherwise, your brains could get even more polluted than the rest of you from all that stuff. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I found out that I come out from New York. I'm a struggling actor and a singer and a pianist. And I'm looking at this bureaucracy of this country spends billions and billions of dollars supporting all these foreign countries, and these countries don't give a shit about this country. And you got to worry about the problems here like the homeless, the high rent, crime on the New York subways. And just recently about this Honor Randall's son that murdered this what happened, shot this person. Now, if you're poor as hell, you'll go to jail a long, long time. Now, I bet you 2 to 1, he'll beat it because money talking this country. You ain't got a buck to get it. Okay? And this bullshit's already got to change.
Well, you're not going to get any argument from me, brother. I agree with you 115%. Well, there's another group, it's not just the poor, and there are political prisoners in America. There are people still there. These 3 women who were convicted for possession of firearms. One of them got 58 years and all that because they're linked to radical groups. They're doing enormous amounts of time, and people being put under terrible conditions in prison and such. And at the other end of the spectrum, of course, you got Ollie North and all those people. I guess some of you heard me on Carol Hemingway today. I don't want to repeat my one-liners, but I did say, well, Poindexter got convicted, found guilty of all his charges. This means instead of doing 200 hours of community service, you have to do 300 hours, no, I'm joking. No, he might have to do time. You never know. But the gutless jurist who refused to put Ollie North in jail set the pattern, and same kind of double standard of. I have a whole section in Democracy for the Few on that, on the double standard of justice. Yes, Miss.
I think the thing that amazes me is that while we crucified Richard Nixon.
Crucify Richard Nixon? No.
Well, we didn't do a damn thing.
We just.
North and George Bush are kicking around Reagan alluded to that. How are we going to change that? I mean, how are we going to get consistency? How are we going to get rid of this regime? God, I see no possibility of dumping these idiots.
Well, no, that's not the way to do it. You can't say I see no possibility of. There are possibilities. There are opportunities. Funny things happening. Openings come. People rally. People surprise you. I thought, like about 7, 8 years ago, I thought everybody was dead asleep, brain dead on the nuclear arms issue, and then the whole nuclear freeze movement came along. Literally millions of Americans just woke up. So it's a funny thing, Funny things can happen. What's the old saying? Apathy's a problem, but who cares? Well,